Well, thank you for inviting me here today. It's an honor to present to the UT Dallas PM Symposium. It's an honor to be here and be a keynote speaker. Jim, I think you're right. I would be surprised if nobody had been in 7-Eleven. I thank you. My 401k plan thanks you very much. I think it's important to kind of listen to a little bit about what's going on at 7-Eleven. Like project management, 7-Eleven is an interesting company too. Practically everything we do is related to project management. Let me start out with, does anybody know where 7-Eleven started? Oak Cliff. So we actually started as an ice house back in 1927. So we've been around a little while. Now this was before refrigeration. There was a gentleman named Joe Thompson, and he actually ran the Southland Ice Company. And we actually had a store manager named Uncle Johnny Green. And he was running one of these Southland ice houses in Dallas. No refrigeration, so people would come to get their blocks of ice. But when they showed up at his store, one thing happened. Basically, they started asking him, boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could get other products? If I could get my milk here. If I could get my eggs, my bread. So Johnny Green called Joe Thompson and said, Mr. Thompson, I really would like to begin putting some other products in the ice house. Well, Mr. Thompson says, we're an ice company, but why don't you go ahead and do it? So this little project that Johnny Green started in his ice house continued to grow. At the end of the year, he called Mr. Thompson and he said, Mr. Thompson, what do I do with this money? Thompson said, what money? He said, all this money I got from selling milk and eggs and bread. Mr. Thompson said, that's pretty interesting. Well, what happened then? Refrigeration. What happened to the ice business? It started to go away. So as a result of the little project that Johnny Green started in his store, Southland Corporation was able to progress away from just an ice house, and an industry was born. A complete industry. A multi-billion-dollar industry. There's currently 150,000 convenience stores here just in the United States. So it's very exciting. Now, what do you think Uncle Johnny Green would think today if he knew where 7-Eleven was today? That's a little bit dated slide. We currently have over 53,000 stores globally. We are the #1 largest global storefront in the world. We're currently located in 16 countries, soon to be 17. We're going to open up our first store in Dubai, the UAE, probably next year in July. So we're going to begin expanding, and we've got tremendous growth. And what I'd also like to share with you is in the next 2 hours, we will open up another 7-Eleven store. Now what's interesting is I didn't see in Ron's great presentation a 7-Eleven store outside. Now we do have a 7-Eleven store right outside Wrigley Field, and it is jumping at the end of every game, at the end of every baseball game. So 7-Eleven is growing. Over the last couple of years, we actually grew or acquired 1,100 stores here in the United States. Several of those stores were in Frisco. So Mr. Patterson's getting the advantage of those taxes and being able to enjoy some of that. But 7-Eleven is a global company right now, and it continues to grow, and it's doing very well. We serve over 25 million customers a day, a little over 9 billion transactions a year. Here in the United States, we do $24 billion in revenue and about $72 billion globally across the whole piece. In the United States, we serve 8 million customers a day in our 7-Eleven stores. That's a lot of folks. It's a lot of Slurpees. It's a lot of good product. So how do I fit in with this, and how does this relate to project management? We heard about Uncle Johnny Green's project and the success of that. I've been with 7-Eleven since dirt. I used to be 6 feet tall and had a full head of hair. 36 years. I started right out of college, and I just wanted to learn a retail business. I went to work for 7-Eleven in Denver. I worked as a store manager, a field consultant, several different roles in operations. I basically went into human resources, was a merchandising category manager. I ran our cigarette and tobacco category, a $2 billion category. Went into logistics, really liked it, and thought I found my home. I was the vice president of logistics for all logistics and distribution for the United States and Canada. And then I moved into IT. Well, you're going to ask the question, how did you get into IT? I'm sitting in my office, My back's to the door. Somebody walks in and says, "What are you doing?" I says, "I'm working. What are you doing?" Figured I'd be polite and turn around. It's Joe DePinto, the CEO of 7-Eleven. And Joe was closing the door. I said, "Boy, this could be the shortest tenure as vice president of logistics or a tremendous opportunity." Joe laid an org chart down on the table. It was the 7-Eleven Japan's organization chart for their IT department. And Joe said, "You know, I want to talk to you about an opportunity." Well, inside 7-Eleven, we approach project management, or even any way we think about business, using the 4-step process. Many of you will recognize that as a scientific method. You start with developing a good, solid current situation analysis. What's specifically going on inside of the area that you're looking at? From that, you will develop your hypothesis. If this, then I will do that. You develop your action plan, and then the step that everyone always forgets is to do the verification. Because right after you've completed the action plan, it's checklist mentality, I'm done. But the most important part of this 4-step process is going back and doing the verification. So knowing that this is how we went to market, having been with 7-Eleven for 36 years, I was waiting for Joe's speech to begin. So Joe started with the CSA. The economy is slowly recovering and income inequality is expanding. This bifurcation of people who have money and those who are just in an average state right now continues to be a pretty stressing part of the economy today. Elements of the economy are growing, but this disposable income that 7-Eleven customers have is not as much as it used to be. So that's a definite piece we need to begin considering. That fight for that discretionary dollar is becoming more and more competitive. Think about a CVS or a Walgreens. Think about the products that they now are introducing into their stores. Fresh food, snacks. Now I think one advantage we have, they haven't quite figured out customer service yet. I always go in and somebody's messing with a photo machine in the corner. But we have opportunities inside of there too. But there's more of what we call channel blurring. It's not as used to be a 7-Eleven on every corner. You could definitely get the consumer's attention very quickly. And last and certainly not least, omni-channel is here. The use of digital technology, the ability for people to use smartphones to begin to look for what they're going to shop, the shopping experience while they're there, the purchase, and then the social engagement afterwards when you begin to talk about that buying experience that you've got. So Joe is setting this up saying that we've got some good challenges. Then, this wasn't really new news to me, CEOs and boards of directors are not looking for IT departments just to keep the lights on anymore. If that's what you're doing, it's just keeping your business running, you're not going to be successful in the IT world or in the business world. CEOs and boards of directors are asking for the IT departments to get engaged and help the business grow sales and profits. So it's okay to be IT, it's just not okay to be the same old IT. So there's a challenge that was coming. And of course, by now I'm still thinking, I think I'm the vice president of logistics, and why is he talking to me about IT? Joe said, I think we really need to do a better job of aligning IT and the business objectives of 7-Eleven. We really want to position the IT department more closely with business, and we absolutely have to add value. Now, I think you heard in Ron's presentation, when they started with a simple project to address a graduation ceremony, they added value by expanding and actually taking care of more than what they planned. This is what Joe was looking for. So Joe was pretty direct, as most CEOs are. He said, okay, Wes, I would like your plan in the next 30 days. Okay. Now, we have a great IT department. I am very fortunate. I think I've got one of the best IT departments in the country. So I went to work, and I told Joe, all right, I'll do it. I'm still running logistics for the company, but I will figure this out. I looked at the strategy map, and we've got one bubble there that says deliver flexible technology. But at a high level, the culture that 7-Eleven has at the bottom, IT is very engaged with that. The hiring of people, the training of people, the management of a servant leadership concept. The excellent execution in the middle, whether we're focusing on fresh foods or executing item by item inventory management in every single store, IT is a portion of that. Meeting the guest experience, whether it's service, assortment, it's value, quality, store engagement, or environment and community. And then obviously the profitability that we're all held responsible for in a retail environment. So Joe said, okay, there's your challenge. And so what I did is I actually developed a plan and I gave it to him in 27 days, and he said, you've got the job. Well, I could spell IT, but that was about it. I had been a subject matter expert, a SME, and a business advisor for several IT projects. So I had the experience. I knew that we locked ourselves in a room and we did something called business requirements, right? And then somebody took that off and they developed something called a system requirement. And a system design, we had to hang code everything. We had to document everything. You guys ever get tired of documentation? SOX compliance, EPMO, controls. I just wanted to get stuff done. But I learned very, very quickly that in the IT world, in the project management world, you absolutely must dot the I's and cross the T's. If you don't, you're going to struggle to be successful. So I approached this challenge with this philosophy, to re-engineer this IT department. Number one, we had to think and do the right thing based on the company's strategy. If we were aligned with that strategy, whether it was simplifying store operations, it's growing the food business, whatever it is, you absolutely have to have your eye on the ball and focused on what it is that the company's working on. The second thing, I challenged my team to think like we run the company. Too often when you get into these projects, people start saying, well, it's going to cost this or it's going to cost that. And I keep encouraging my people, this is your money. How would you spend it? I think a great example of utilizing partnership from Ron's presentation and being able to keep the cost under control. And the last thing, you absolutely must be flexible and innovative. Don't rely on past experience. Challenge the status quo. If you're still living in the past and you're not looking forward out the windshield, you're looking in that rear view mirror, you're not going to be successful. But you have to do that with a solid hypothesis. So, I started with the CSA, a current situation analysis. I won't take you too far in the weeds here. We have three basic systems at 7-Eleven. One we call our common systems. It's an item master. That's where we have all of the product assortment. We manage the cost, the retails, the LDU, the SKU numbers, the UPC numbers. Everything's there. We have an order processor. You may not know, but our 7-Eleven stores order, our franchisees order almost every product in the store by themselves. Our DSD, direct store order suppliers like Bud, Coke, Miller, Pepsi, Coors, they don't order in 7-Eleven stores. We have a hypothesis that our franchisees know better about what's going on in their store to do this order. But a retail information system that I support has to be effective for it. And also our business intelligence is housed in this common system. That's our BI information, that's where our big data resides, and that's where we use all of our customer information and guidance. The second system is our store system. Every store has POS registers. We have an ISP, an in-store processor, back office computer in every store. We have scanners. We have something called a graphic order terminal. It looks like an Etch-a-Sketch, where you can stand in front of a section and do your order. You can see what you ordered the last 4 weeks, what you sold the last 4 weeks, what gross profit dollars you made the last 4 weeks to help you make product assortment decisions. Our back office system, we have accounting system, we have HR, we have mainframe systems. We have some pretty old stuff that I'll talk about here in a second. But what we found when we did this current situation analysis, our systems were costly. They had multiple applications. They lacked support for future direction. They weren't flexible enough for us to move forward. The architecture wasn't flexible. The hardware was at end of life. Inflexible systems, out of support code, high cost. I had to ask the question, how did we get there? Well, IT departments mostly are a cost center. So you're going to invest in a Slurpee machine long before you invest perhaps in some of the IT infrastructure. So that was a challenge. But once I had identified our opportunities here, it allowed me to go deeper into a CSA. I really think that because IT hasn't pulled the business in and began working more closely with the business, they really didn't effectively operate the IT department. The customer service was very poor. 17 out of 75 projects were over budget. The average project overrun was 25%. Now, coming from operations, when you're given a budget, you can't miss it, okay? You're held accountable for it. And if you had your grades, if you're attending school here, think you get a 25% overrun or underrun on your grades? I don't think so. We had some misaligned cost structure out there. We had multiple staff contractors. We had multiple IT vendors. We had over 50 IT vendors that 7-Eleven was working with. And quite honestly, I don't think we were challenging the status quo and the current pricing from those vendors. And because we lacked that business focus, that lack of alignment, 7-Eleven wrote off close to $35 million in projects. And coming from operations that just floored me. I couldn't believe that we were that poorly planned, that we weren't managing projects that well to cost the company $35 million. We didn't have pre-project reviews to look at the funding. We didn't have a roadmap that holistically would show where we wanted to take our systems to better support the business. And remember, it's not just about keeping the lights on, it's about how do we grow the business heading into the future. We also didn't have good communication with the business. The business heard IT, and I think Ron said it very well, their eyes start to roll back in the back of their heads. They just want to go get stuff done. So that was my challenge. So my hypothesis was, based on some of that, if we could get a handle on this cost management, if we could really take that cost in hand and lower that cost by prioritizing the projects, developing a solid roadmap, re-engineering the IT department and right-sizing it. We also looked at outsourcing versus in-house, and then we did a thorough in-depth contract review. We could then improve our business process, improve store efficiency, operations excellence, and we could become at 7-Eleven more guest-centric. We could have better products for the customers. We could provide better service. We could stay on the cutting edge. We could align the IT department with the business, and then we could have improved overall operations from a sales and profit. Now, this was a pretty big challenge put together in 27 days. Pretty big project, so I had some pressure. But as I said, I have a great team to help me get there. It's about looking at the org structure, figuring out how to communicate with the business, how to speak the language that they'll all understand, aligning the business goals. And I can't say it enough. When we look at projects at 7-Eleven, it's about prioritization. If you don't do this, you're going to be inundated, you're going to be overworked, and you're probably going to be underpaid. So, my first task was, how do I align the IT department? I know this is a busy slide. I'm going to give you the high look at it. At the top, our job inside of IT is to support our franchisees and stores, but we have another client, and that's all of our business functional departments. You'll see them listed. Real estate, facilities, construction, store operations, gas, franchising, asset protection, merchandising, logistics, marketing, accounting, HR, legal, planning, and finance. So what I did to improve the communication and to better align IT and business, I created support teams for each one of those areas. And I brought people from the business into the IT department to help manage those support teams. Now, I got to tell you, these business people were very good, but when they look at a watch, all they want to know is what time is it. They don't know how to build that watch. So I married each of those business people up with an IT expert. So together, the business and IT would go to our business partners, and they meet with them monthly and say, what are your priorities? How are we doing? How can we help to hit the company's strategic directions? We look at funding and initiatives, how we manage it in the rest of this chart. You'll see it as you work your way down. We do have a demand management process. We do use EPMO to manage our projects. And as I said, sometimes it's onerous, but it definitely keeps us out of hot water. So when we presented this to the business, we were again trying to align. And so when you go for funding as a cost center, you really have to make sure you've got your ducks in a row. So we were thinking if we could explain to the business that we've got 3 areas that we fund inside of IT. It's improving the infrastructure, it's keeping up on the keep the lights on and regulatory compliance, and it's initiatives that will help you remain relevant in today's industry. So how better to explain IT to the business than to directly correlate it to something they knew? So when we talked about infrastructure, generational upgrades of software and hardware, it's the exact same thing as the necessity for remodels. Since we're a company that's been around since 1927, we've got some old stores. We're in the process of going through some major remodels. If you're in the Dallas area, you've seen some great operators with Quick Trip, Racetrack. They have newer stores, and they look good. We're in the process of catching up. But if you don't do that, just like if you don't do the IT infrastructure, you're not going to be successful. When we talked about keep the lights on and regulatory, it's about how you mitigate risk, how you protect that shareholder value. It's the exact same thing as store maintenance and repair. If you have a pothole in your store, if you've got a slurping machine that's down, are you going to do business? No. It's not going to be effective. The last area was initiatives. Looking for strategic initiatives and functional capabilities to grow revenue, to improve gross profit, to better help us connect with our guests. That's exactly like the new programs that we do at 7-Eleven. We introduce on average between 35 and 40 new items a week at a 7-Eleven store. Now as a customer, you probably don't know that, and we're working on how we can better communicate. But when we talk to the business that the initiatives we're going to work on are just like your new programs and the new services that you have, a light bulb went off. Joe stopped me at this point in the presentation and he said, so let me get this straight, Wes. You're basically dumbing down IT so we operators can understand it. Is that correct? I'm thinking, how do I answer that to myself? Yes, Joe, it's correct. You understand it? He says, absolutely. He loved the chart because it aligned IT's initiatives with exactly what the business was looking at. And when you begin to talk to the business, you've got to make sure that you're communicating in that exact same language. So here's an example of how not to communicate to the business. This is our actual flowchart of our accounting system. Our accounting system is anywhere from 35 to 40 years old. It operates on COBOL language, assembly language. For those of you who are my age, I'm having to hire geezers out of retirement to come and work on this system. Now, there is one advantage when you use this slide to talk to the business. You say, our systems are too complicated. They get it like that. Yeah. But you have to make sure that you talk to the business in their language. Great example I'll give you. I've been in position 2 weeks. Take the weekend off. It's a Saturday. I get a call at the house. It's my team. They said, we have a problem. I said, great. What is it? And he says, well, we have some stores, gas stores that can't sell gas. Well, being an operator, I say, okay, how many gas stores? And they say 628 stores can't sell gas. I said, okay. I said, you got to tell me more. I need to know what we're doing. And they said, well, we're writing a script. And I stopped and said, what? You're writing a play, a movie? What are you doing? I'm a business guy, right? I'm a business guy. They're saying we're writing a script so we can figure out what the problem is, and they explained it to me, and I got it. I hung up the phone rings. It's the COO of the company, my boss. And he says, Wes, I hear I got a store that can't sell gas. And I said, Darren, nope, you have 628 stores that can't sell gas. But was I going to tell the COO of 7-Eleven, I'm writing a script? Darren, we're getting to the root cause of the problem. We're getting to immediate fix. We'll find out what happens so we can prevent it from happening in the future. I'll give you an update later. So learning to speak to the business in language is important. Another brief story. Been in position almost a month, and I got a call from Joe, our CPO. He said, Wes, we really need to get to an open architecture for our store system. And I'm thinking, oh boy. Joe, I said, where did you hear this or think this? One of our board members said that we need to get to an open architecture. I said, Joe, do you know what an open architecture is? He did. He says, it's got to be more flexible, it's got to be configurable, it's got to be, dynamic. I said, okay, that's pretty scary when a board member and your CEO are telling you how to get to architecture. So architecture. But at the same time, the business conversation is absolutely important. When you're doing project management, if you're not speaking the same language as the client, as the people you're doing those projects with, you're not going to be successful. And think about it. You have technical terms. I read some of your cards out there, PMP, SMB, you use acronyms out the kazoo. We've all got them. The business doesn't have time for some of that. So you absolutely need to make sure in project management that you speak the language of your client and business. So, how did we go about doing it? I said we need to prioritize. If we're really going to focus on what drives business initiatives and drives our sales and profits, we have to look at it. If we have a strategic project that everybody is aligned on, our executive committee is aligned on it, our senior leadership's aligned on it, we're going to do it. If it's a pretty important project, what's its return on invested capital? We have a target for return on invested capital. If it hits it, we're going to do it. Why? Because it gives us more money to reinvest in growing our business. Now, if it's nice to have, stop the presses. We're not going to do it. We do have to keep the lights on. We do have to continue with regulatory compliance, and it's our job inside of our department to find the most cost-effective way and the cost-effective, productive manner to run that. So when we started, we looked at prioritizing the projects. We actually reduced the number of strategic projects at 7-Eleven by 40%. That gave us a tremendous opportunity to apply the right focus, the right quality, and when you think back to that four-step process, the ability to do a better job of verifying, are we meeting the needs with that particular project? So this was a challenge because the business, they want everything. And they're going to come to you and they're going to say, I really need this. Well, I had an ace in the hole. I had business people on my team. So when merchandising came in and says, we really need this, the guy who worked in merchandising who's now working for IT says, no, you don't. It's nice to have. Here's how you can do it. So we have blended business and IT together, and it's worked pretty effectively too. Now, when I put this whole thing together, I really was watching way too much basketball, the Dallas Mavericks. I was thinking offense and defense. We didn't have any defense at the time at the Mavericks, but inside of IT, we're focusing more on the defensive side, more on just keeping the lights on, more on just, hey, look, you got to keep this big ship running. So we began to look at changing the focus from just that keep the lights on, more to strategic projects. We have a target that 66% of our IT spend will be on strategic projects. Year to date right now we're at 64%. So we're getting closer, but it is a challenge for us. It is a big challenge overall. But when you begin to think about it, what is the direction of the project? What is the specific target and objective you're trying to do? Now 7-Eleven looked at an outsourcing model. We did some of this. Our parent company, 7-Eleven Japan, does almost all outsourcing. I think I'm lean. I have 150 people in my shop to manage 8,400 stores here in the United States and Canada. That's pretty small. So I outsource quite a bit. I thought I was doing pretty good. 7-Eleven Japan, who has 16,500 stores in Japan, has 71 people in their IT department. So I've got some challenges, and I'm not quite ready to go that far with an outsourced model. I had dinner with Scott Laverty, the CIO from Penny's, about a month ago. And Scott and I were talking shop, and I said, how many people do you have on your staff? He says, no, I haven't, bringing it down. I had 750, I'm down to 600 now. I told him I had 150. He says, yeah, we're bigger than you. And I said, Scott, I don't think so. I think Penny's sales are about 13 billion. Ours are 14 billion merchandise, 10 billion in gas. And I think I have a few more stores than JCPenney's. He was floored. He was floored. But to effectively manage the volume and scale of the projects we do, on average, our IT department will do upwards of 150 projects a year. And so most of those are strategic now, at least about half of them, or 60% of them are. But we are very, very busy inside our shop. We defined the core competencies for 7-Eleven and for our IT shop. We said, what do we want to own? And that included the business requirements. It included that internal knowledge of our business. We defined the purpose of outsourcing. Yes, cost was part of it, but being dynamic, having the number of resources to get things done at a faster pace. So we moved from a little over 50 IT vendors down to 5 strategic IT vendors. Gives me a tremendous advantage to leverage that cost over those 5 vendors. I can better manage it. There's less time and effort managing those partners. And quite honestly, it's been a pretty good win for 7-Eleven overall. So this was the other focus area that we said we really needed to do, is get a handle on how we manage the labor and manage that project management in general. So how did we do? By prioritizing, by re-engineering the department, by basically becoming more efficient with our outsourcing. Gartner, independent industry analysts, will tell you that projects overall, only 68% of IT projects are completed within budget. That floors me. As an operator, we are not allowed to miss budgets that much. You have to hit it. So I took that attitude inside of 7-Eleven and acted like we owned the business. We're right at 100% on budget for all of the projects we've done this year. Gartner says 56% of IT projects are completed on time. That means you've got a lot of projects that aren't completed on time. Well, if the business says they need something, you have to deliver. This chart says 98, we've slipped some. We've dropped down to about 91%, which is still good to Gartner. It's not good if you're on the business side. So the objective inside of IT is you've got to look at on time, on budget, with quality. But that's kind of just the price of admission. That's just the price of entering into this game that we play inside of the IT world. But I think the verification that 7-Eleven says, if you really focus on what you're working on, if you really look at doing things in the most efficient manner, challenging the status quo, getting out there and doing something slightly different, and if you re-engineer sometimes the way you approach things, you can achieve some good results. And I'm very proud of these. And again, I can't talk enough about the IT department that I've got. Just a talented group of people, and it helps me. It helps me a lot, so it's good. All right, contracts. I felt for Ron looking at all of those different companies he had to deal with. And we go through the same thing. We have stakeholders. You don't necessarily have to be in the government to have stakeholders that disagree or don't necessarily align. It happens in every retail organization as well. So when you look at this from a contract perspective, I asked the team to take a deep dive. Every project we do requires a contract, whether it's a master of services agreement or you've got a statement of work that you've done. But we really challenged ourselves to try and do things slightly differently. Like most companies, we do external benchmarking. We take a look to see what the cost is out there, the going rate, the going quality that's in the industry. We look for flexibility. So we design that flexibility inside of the contract. And in most cases, we write our own contract. Some of them are boilerplate. Some of them we may ask our vendor partners to come up with. But by creating our own paper, it gives us a little bit more control. We've started adding something to this that I think is very beneficial. It talks to continuous improvement. We not only are asking for the best going rate now, but when we move forward, we're asking for a decrease in cost throughout the life of that contract or improvement in the SLAs. What you'll notice here is that the Japanese concept of Kaizen is continual improvement. And that's what 7-Eleven is looking for. We have one vendor partner that not only did we achieve, and contractually we've got a year-over-year cost decrease, but our service level agreements, our actual metrics, must improve year-over-year as well. And I think it's that mutual agreement up front, it's that alignment up front that can help projects go smoothly. Now, I got to tell you, contracts are probably the biggest pain for my department. We have a legal attorney for the IT department, and the guy is smart. He's killer smart. And he understands IT. So boy, is it tough to get contracts done. And it's really, really painful. So now we're starting to build in a little extra time up front to deal with those contracts. But that's probably the biggest pain point we've got at 7-Eleven right now at the start of a project. But the time you spend up front, making sure that as a program manager, as a project manager, as a program leader, you understand the workings of the contract and it's aligned with where you're going, it really can help you. Now, I have a hypothesis on contracts. Once they're signed, I like to stick them in a drawer and I don't like to pull them out again. I think it should be clear enough, your relationship with your vendor partners, with the people working with your projects, that you should clearly understand it, and it needs to be a solid working relationship. I have every 2 weeks, I pull in all of my 5 strategic vendor partners for an hour-long meeting. And we basically talk about 7-Eleven's direction. We talk about what we're trying to accomplish. They're allowed to share thoughts. They're allowed to share input. That's pretty uncomfortable. You put some competitive companies together in a room. But you know what? By doing that, I think you get the most benefit, you get the most information. So contracts, while onerous, I think really help to improve overall project management. The other thing I would encourage you to look at, even when you take a look at approaching a project, is to challenge the status quo. We have done business with an IT partner for about 17 years. A great company, really good. But as I began to be new in the role, had been in position about 6 months, I started looking at the cost. And hosting and storage is a big part of the work at IT World. So I said, what am I paying for hosting and storage? And all I knew is I used to be able to buy a thumb drive for $49 with some kind of gig on it. And now I can buy it for $10 with 10 times the gig on it, okay? So I went to this partner and I said, if I were a new retailer coming to you, what would I be paying in storage? Would I be paying what I'm paying now or less? And they said less. I said, wrong answer. So I said, let's negotiate. And so we tried to negotiate. We got a little off, and I'm going, I just don't think that you guys are relevant now in the marketplace. So we looked at the rest of their contract, and lo and behold, it was steep. We didn't quite understand completely what we were doing. The problem was we'd been doing business with this partner for 17 years. We had outsourced our institutional knowledge to this thing. They did it all. We said, here it is, they did it. Life was great, okay? Except we didn't feel like a customer anymore. We really didn't feel like we were getting the benefits that we needed. So we said, we're going to put it out to RFP. Nobody believed we would do it. So we did put it out to RFP. We made a vendor change. We went with 2 other new companies. But it was painful because we lost that institutional knowledge. The systems weren't well documented. So we had to actually do all of the documentations, changing everything over. The back office, store system, that common system. Very painful, a lot of work. But to give you an idea, from a production perspective, we got a reduction in hourly rates by 38%. The projected first 5-year savings from what we were paying was 53%. By challenging the status quo. Now, my CEO asked me, he says, why haven't we done this before? It's hard work. That's why we haven't done it. You're taking the ordering system, you're taking the whole accounting system over to a new environment. We worked weekends to get it done, and if it didn't go over, who was accountable? The IT department. So it was not easy. But you know what? Would I do it again? In a heartbeat. Not only because the numbers you see here from a cost perspective and a savings perspective, we regained that institutional knowledge inside of my department. We now have solid documentation. We now have people who are so familiar with the project management of a big, major project. It's a huge win for our department and our team. So with that in place, we said, okay, now, how do we tackle business process improvement? How do we make it easier for the stores? How do we do operational excellence? How do we really drive that? So we had a couple projects. One is called business transformation. As I mentioned, our stores order electronically. They actually place an order by 10 in the morning. We batch process it, send it to a host computer, and that hour later we send it out to our vendor partners. Really, we don't send it. They go on a web BTS and pick it up, and then they either build the product for us, our daily fresh-made sandwiches, fresh-made bakery, or they pull the product, put it on their trucks, and then send it to our 7-Eleven stores. We scan it at the register, so we have phenomenal transactional data on items. We can tell you by day part, by hour, exactly what's selling in every store. I can look at my desk computer, and I can tell you exactly. But we didn't complete the cycle. We weren't doing electronic check-ins, so we didn't have that logical inventory in the store. So our business transformation project was to move to electronic check-in, but at the same time it enabled us to do electronic billing. So when Coke brings in the product, we scan the product with the driver, we pay only what we receive. We pay for only what we receive. Coke doesn't have to print an invoice anymore. Pepsi doesn't have to print an invoice. The driver doesn't have to futz with that. We now just automatically send them what's been checked in by the store and the franchisee. So this is a project that's underway. It's pretty aggressive. By the end of this year, you'll see again in 2014, we'll have 52% of the stores. And by the end of next year, we'll have all stores done at the end of 2015. So how did that improve the business? Paperwork reduction alone at the store. We did an industrial engineer study. We reduced the work at the store by 29%. Ordering, which everyone has an ordering formula, R is the forecast plus minimum on hand minus your on-hand inventory equals the order. Well, before we did this electronic check-in, you had to go out and manually count every item to get that on-hand inventory. So we reduced the ordering time by 66%, and check-in time's been reduced by 43%. This gives our franchisees time to focus more on growing the business and dealing with the consumer relationship. Oh, by the way, sales when we roll this out in preparation for it are anywhere from 2.6 to 3% up in all of these business transformation stories. I'd say that's pretty good verification from a project to make it easier for the business. A couple other things. Yes, we have refreshed our hardware. We're on a natural refresh cycle, but when we put in new ISPs and scanners and GOTS, we had a 75% reduction in help desk calls, and the project management on this team was pretty amazing. You're actually installing this equipment in 8,400 stores. We have a project manager who found ways, either through prioritization or the way she could improve it. She took $5.4 million off the project in capital dollars. Just a tremendous management job. We rolled out shelf tags recently. It's helping us to reduce out of stock. It used to be if somebody ran out of stock, they'd take the product next to it and just move it next to it. The store looks great. but you don't know that you're missing something, so they don't order it next time. So with shelf tags, it's actually improving our out of stock, and the time to shelf sequence, since remember I mentioned that guy, you stand in front of the section, you can see the products. Now your shelf sequencing gets accurate. We've saved 65% of the time. And not too long ago, we had an EBT, Electronic Benefits Transfer. It's a SNAP program, food stamp program. Unfortunately, because of the economy, the usage of food stamps continues to grow in the United States. But 7-Eleven had the old government-issued EBT equipment. And if you were going to redeem your food stamps, you sometimes had to go to that, key in your PIN pad. And that's just inconvenient for the guests, and quite honestly, it's embarrassing at sometimes. So we integrated that into our POS registers. So now we're back on target, and again, shortening our time to roll out new stores, and overall we're having a savings because we had an extra phone line in the store to handle those different pieces of equipment, a phone line savings of $2.4 million a year. So the IT department, I think you're getting the picture that we now are contributing to financial benefit for the company that can be reinvested. We've got a couple other projects. Our field consultants, we have a field consultant who has between 8 and 10 stores. They're a business consultant, and they act as a business consultant for our franchisees. We had old computers. They were the Dell 620s. They're bricks is what we call them. They're about 40 pounds. 7-Eleven people are very healthy because they were carrying these bricks. But we weren't keeping up at the time, so we rolled out a new tablet, a hybrid. You can take the top off and use it as a tablet. You keep the bottom on. It's got double batteries. We now have an application, so when they go to do a store walk, they can take pictures in the store, they can write notes on it, do the survey, email it automatically to the franchisee, and everybody has the right information. On the right of that, or to your right, 7Hub, that's our communication process. We had an antiquated communication tool inside of 7-Eleven. We've had usage that's increased from the new tool. It's doing well. On the lower left-hand side, 7Help. Whenever somebody has an IT problem in the store, they can call our help desk, but that's a pain. You're put on hold sometimes, first call response isn't the greatest. You now can go online and do a help desk issue, and we're rolling this out for our franchise accounting piece too. When it's said and done, typically our guys will say, all right, it's fixed. This gives our franchisees the opportunity to say, no, it's not. And if they don't approve it, then boom, we're right back with that great customer service for the franchisees to take care of business. And the remaining one is the one I'm really excited about, the digital guest experience. If you haven't downloaded the 7-Eleven app, you really need to do it. We did a soft launch back in January, and we've been looking at growing it. It's pretty cool. It'll show you where you are. You can find out where the 7-Eleven stores are close to you. You can find out what products they carry. We have coupons that we offer. So 7-Eleven Day, we celebrate our birthday on July 11th. We gave away 9.5 million Slurpees on 7-Eleven. It was great. It was great. But while they were waiting for those Slurpees, we gave them a flyer and said, if you download the app, 7-Eleven app, next week, every day, we're going to give you a free product. So we were averaging about 1,500 downloads a day until we handed out that flyer and gave away 9.5 million Slurpees. It jumped up to 135,000. Well, unfortunately, we didn't design our system. I got a lot of phone calls on that, looking for dynamic capacity, but you told me you only needed this much, so now we're working on it. And you're going to see here in September, you're going to see some good coffee promotions if you sign up. There's a loyalty program. We went from close to 2 million downloads to 3 million downloads right now, which is still growing. Of the 3 million, 65% have given us their personal information. Just name, email, and phone number. That's all. Okay? 45% of those people came into the 7-Eleven store to redeem the product. Okay? That's pretty good. So we think we've got an opportunity, and you know what? We're going to be partnering with some pretty big players. Coke, Bud, Miller, Pepsi, Coors, Frito. We're doing a lot more. We just launched also at the July 3rd, July 2nd, Doritos Loaded. A great set of product available at 7-Eleven. That's my shameless plug for Frito. But we really see the consumer moving to the digital world, whether it's marketing, and so more and more projects that retailers are going to be doing are related to the mobile guest experience. And we are doing that at 7-Eleven. We have an acronym called RISE, Retail Information System Evolution. Remember that call I got from the CEO and the board director that said you need an open architecture? We had 6 databases for our store. Well, I raised my hand being a business guy and says, why do we have 6? Well, the product was a Microsoft product, good product. And you got free database up to 2 gig. When that filled up though, well, let's just add another database. And another, and another. We had 4 different types of ISPs in our stores. So whenever we did software development down to the stores, you had to do a pattern of testing. This ISP with this database, this ISP with this database. It took us longer and cost us more money to roll IT software to our stores. So as part of this evolution, we basically are going to one database. We are currently at one ISP in the stores. We've improved the middleware, but since the hood was open, and this is kind of what Ron was doing, since we addressed that problem, we said, what else can we do? So we began working on how do we improve store efficiency. So those screens in the stores that they go through to ordering, we reduced the number of screens they had to view by 30%. The software cost reduction is 25%. The help desk calls are down 25%. And the time it takes to order, remember I said we scan everything in? Now with this system, we'll have the ability to do automatic replenishment for product in the center of the store. Again, saving our franchisees time and money. I mentioned accounting. This is an ongoing project. This is scary because it's huge, and as I mentioned, going to be a challenge for us. But again, it's looking for process improvement. And those ISPs that we've got in the stores, those backroom computers, technology has progressed far enough now. You don't need hardware in the store. You can go to a thin client. You can begin moving to the cloud. You can take a lot of it out of your store. So if I don't have to buy ISPs for 8,400 stores, oh, by the way, I just put some ISPs in the stores when they're depreciated in 5 years. I'm not going to be buying for 8,400 stores. I'm going to be buying for 10 or 12,000 stores because we're going to keep growing. I think this is a better approach from a cost perspective and also a better approach overall for us to manage the IT work. This is my elevator speech. This is my strategy, my IT strategy. At the lower section, you see proprietary information technology systems. That's the core system that I talked to you about. You can't get off of it. I went to a meeting with Mark Hurd, who's now the CEO of Oracle. And Mark is a great salesman. He said, if you would just buy all of the Oracle stack and put it in your stores, you would be great. I said, Mark, how do I write off all this other stuff? Are you going to cover that for me? No. Well, I've got a core system that's not easily changed. It's our job to make sure it's more productive, cost-effective, and efficient. That's our job. But our consumers are changing faster than ever. The digital technology is driving them. Our business partners are changing. They want things faster. So this great attorney also said in my staff meeting, he says, well, what's your benchmark for fast? And I said, do you have a smartphone? He said, yes. I said, how long does it take you to download an app? He said, about 20 seconds. I said, that's the benchmark. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to get there with everything. But the expectation has been raised for projects to be faster, for all of the work that we do inside of IT to be faster, and so we have to begin thinking about what other technology can be used. These are just examples up there. You see them: cloud, software as a service, platform as a service, SOA architecture, mobile, social, big data. All of these things are what we're working on to be flexible. But if you're not looking from a project management perspective, how to deliver quickly with the quality, it's going to be a challenge. Okay, what's the results? Since 2007, and since the work we've done starting in 2009, we actually have reduced the cost of IT on a per store basis 25%. Now, the cost of IT at 7-Eleven is going to go up. And when I told the CEO, well, it's really the CEO got it, the CFO had a heart attack when I said, the cost of IT is going to go up. He says, what do you mean? I said, well, you're going to open up 400 to 500 stores a year or 1,000 stores a year. I'm going to have to buy all this technology, support all this technology. The cost of IT is going to go up. Hold me accountable for decreasing the cost of IT on a per store basis. That's what we've done. By the end of 2015, we think we will have reduced the cost of IT at 7-Eleven on a per store basis by 28.7%. We think that's great. We're improving the quality. We're improving the value that's out there. Now, is cost the final line? No way. We also do a survey. And again, I know it's, apologize for the font for the small stuff, but remember when I said my team meets with the business? We have them rate us on a scale of 1 to 10 on a monthly basis, 1 to 5. And we have 10 questions. The lighter color line is how we rated in 2012. The little darker color line is where we ended up in 2013. I've heard from a lot of CIOs, they don't get quite as good ratings from their business people. And I think this is part of the work that we've done at 7-Eleven to improve it. Do they want us to go faster? Do they still want us to respond and meet their needs a little bit faster and better? Yes. But I think they understand better how IT works, how projects work. The other thing is now they're looking to IT. And again, brag a little bit, I think the IT department has the best handle on project management. We use EPMO, we've got the demand planning process. We actually have an IT review steering committee that looks at all of the projects that are related to IT. We custom discuss to make sure that we're aligned, but it has really been effective and we've seen some real positive results at 7-Eleven. So some key learning, if you want to add value, and this was for us, but I think this can apply a little bit to our project management as well. I approached it from cost management, but you really need to think about prioritizing the work that you do as project managers, as people who own getting stuff done. Make sure that you're working on the right things, align with the business with that. And then as you go forward, challenge the status quo, whether it's the way you write contracts, whether it's the way you look at adding continuous improvement, who you're working with as vendor partners, how you're driving that. And then look towards the business process improvement. Am I adding value? Think about that end-to-end holistic approach. If you have any ability to look at a roadmap, or as the companies and clients you deal with, ask to see a roadmap, because that will help you to define the direction in which you're going. And the last, and I think most important, is customer service. You have to listen to the customer. You have to listen to your client. You have to know. You have to communicate in the language that they will understand. And if you're halfway through the conversation, their eyes roll back in their heads, back up and start again. Keep it simple. The roadmap, again, is a priority, and I think it's something that will be very, very beneficial for you. So thank you for allowing me to share some thoughts and some successes that we've been having at 7-Eleven. I appreciate your time, and be glad to take some questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Very interesting presentation.
One question I did have was from your customer is stores, basically, in the technology. Within those stores, you have customers come in. Is there currently an effort to understand where those customers go once they're in the store? How long we spend in different areas, how to move products up, things like that?
There absolutely is. We have DVR cameras in the stores now that give us a look, and we can begin to monitor flow. But the next phase is adding beacons in the store, which tie directly to your mobile phone, so we can then track that. The fortunate thing we've got in 7-Eleven, our stores are averaging about 2,400 square feet. It's not too difficult to see. And quite honestly, if you're coming to a 7-Eleven store, you're what we call a destination shopper. If you're thirsty, you're typically going to go straight to the cold vault, get what you want, and typically walk straight back to the sales counter. So what we'll do is you may notice an occasional obtrusive display that you walk by and, oh, that looks good. So it's a little bit of marketing there, but we think technology is going to help us get there. It's probably not as relevant as in a large box store because we get that ability to view it a little bit more frequently, but it is a good question. Thank you. Question?
I noticed, at least in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that you have, or Exxon has spun off their convenience store operations to 7-Eleven. Is that on a nationwide basis as well?
It is. Your upstream money for your gasoline companies is much higher. It's much more profitable for them to run the gasoline business than it is the retail business.
Right.
We picked up 155 ExxonMobil stores in Florida. We picked up about 80 to 90 here. We picked up some Shell stations. We bought a Techco company out of San Antonio. We bought a refinery down there, a distributorship for the fuel, and now we've converted a lot of the Chevron Techco stations to 7-Eleven. So it was an easy acquisition for us because they had good storefront, they had good street corners, and then we could get the retail convenience store business.
How did you migrate your system, migrate from the Exxon IT systems to the 7-Eleven systems?
That's why I'm no longer 6 feet tall and have a full head of hair. What we did is basically, that was one of the first things we did. We really wanted to understand the business in these stores and how it differed. We had the data before, but it's different from really seeing it. So we did the conversion first thing. Even before we were doing some of the changes on the front sign, we installed our retail information system. The other advantage I've got is across the entire chain, part of our franchisee agreement is that all franchisees will use one standard 7-Eleven retail information system. So we installed that first. The training was a bear, as you can imagine, but it's gone very well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, up in the corner.
Hello, again, thank you so much for coming here today. My name is Brian Vandergast. And what I've noticed about the 7-Eleven, especially at the Chicago where I'm from, thank you very much. What I've noticed about 7-Elevens, especially in Chicago where I'm from, it's Slurpee rhymes with summer. And I want to tell you, I spend a lot of time going to the 7-Eleven to suck down those Slurpees. And what I've noticed about your front counter is, I talk to them, and I can find out anything about your store just by talking to that front-end person. And that brings me to what you did to improve communication with your business markets. You now established a front door, kind of a cash register person, to communicate from IT to your business area to better increase your communications. So again, you have that person, talks to business, and you're increasing your communications across the world. IT is not a cost center. IT is a cost reducer. We're a value generator. What else can IT do, in your mind, to better leverage what we really are and get that message across to those people that pay our bills? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comments. Appreciate it. Appreciate your purchasing this Slurpee too. It's a high gross profit margin for us. We rely on our face-to-face touch. Our franchisees know the names of many of the customers that come in the store. If you're a regular on your way to work in the morning, you have that cup of coffee, they know who you are. The thing that we're looking at is that 7-Eleven is going to use its 8,400 stores differently than other brick and mortars. We're beginning to look at that as a point of distribution. Look at Amazon. Everyone looks very competitive when you talk about Amazon. We have about 200 Amazon lockers in our 7-Eleven stores in a test right now. So you can order certain Amazon products, have it delivered to your 7-Eleven store. I don't know about you, I buy a lot of stuff online at Christmas time, but UPS comes and where do they put it? Right in front of my door, and they leave. They don't even care if I'm there. And I live in a pretty nice neighborhood, but you know what? We're looking at 7-Eleven to take advantage of the brick and mortar, to take advantage of those sales associates, those franchisees that are there, to encourage, and we're looking from an IT perspective, how do we use technology to drive that point of distribution? How do we use technology to begin to look at gaining more customers there? And that, in the end, is going to increase our sales and profits. Right here, Bill? Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about the your statistics on your budgets finishing above the average, and I was just wondering what kind of steps you go through to derive a project budget, especially like on a software development project, and then what kind of steps or controls do you use to keep those on budget?
As I said, we do a lot of external benchmarking to determine what it is. We do partner with Gartner fairly much, so we've got an idea from an industry perspective it's going to be. We have a vendor management team who is specifically devoted to tracking projects, to looking at it. So we go through the standard business process. We'll start with a high-level estimate, HLE, and from there we'll build it into an RFP if necessary, if we're doing a bid out to several of the partners out there. And when we come to the budget, basically what we've got, that's what we're going to monitor to. Now, we love this story. When I first came on board, they talked to me about this thing called a contingency. And I said, well, how much contingency do we have? Well, sometimes 60, 70%. I'm going, So we've lowered our contingency down to about 5 to 10%. So we've got a little bit of a swing there that we manage too. But the budget is based derived on what our vendor partners suggest, benchmarking versus the industry. And then we track it by milestones. And so we actually, at each of our staffings, we'll go through a listing of the projects to see time, budget, and quality. Quality is defined by number of defects. Heading into production, we want 0 into production, and then out of production, we have a threshold of up to 5. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned several times the importance of prioritizing the work.
Thank you. I'm wondering, could you tell us a little bit more about that process? For example, do you have a project management office, a PMO, or a portfolio management process? Thank you.
We absolutely do. They're threatening to pull it under the IT department, which, quite honestly, the way we run projects, I think it would be all bad. The PMO does manage across all projects in the organization, we have what's called a portfolio review committee. It's got all of our executive committee and senior leaderships that review all projects coming up. So, and we do have twice a year a senior leadership offsite to determine are the projects we're doing hitting the strategic directions of 7-Eleven in which we're going. And so I think that's what we do. But we do have a PMO. In all strategic projects, they do provide a PMO. And so we have one person on the team fully devoted from the PMO office to the key strategic projects.
I have a logistical question. And my question is, can you talk about where you're located in Dallas, your headquarters, where you were located, where you are located, and where you'll be moving to soon?
We originally were located just off of Haskell, and then the Thompson family built a place called City Place, just off of Haskell. The goal was to build an exact replica across 75 with the bridge that went across. We went into a leveraged buyout into and out of bankruptcy, Chapter 11, way back in the early 90s. We eventually moved from City Place down to a place called One Arts Plaza. That worked for us down there, but with the growth that we're experiencing right now, we look for a new building. Frisco didn't call us, so we're going to move to Irving. But Irving is a lot closer to the airport. So since we are a global company, and since we do look at that, and in fact, the developer of the building that we're in today down at One Arts Plaza is the exact same developer for the building out in Irving. So she's happy because she gets a big name tenant in the new place, and she's probably going to be able to rent out our place at more than we're paying today. So, but we're Dallas-based. We plan on staying in Dallas, and but there are some tax benefits that these cities offer you when you make these moves, so it's pretty good.
I had a question about your store experience program. I worked with 7-Eleven a very, very long time ago, but that was a very impactful program. Do you guys still offer that, and can you speak to the benefits about that?
Sure. We require everyone at our store support center or our corporate office to work in stores. So this year, if you don't have store experience, you have to go out and work in the store for 5 to 6 weeks. If you've got store experience like me, I grew up in the stores, I have to go out and work in the store for 2 weeks. The objective is not to make you sweep the floors and mop the floors, but to better understand what those people go through at the store and how your department, whether it's merchandising, development, gasoline, can help to make it better overall for those franchisees. I think it's a great program. Some people get a little bit nervous, but the most fun I've ever had was working in a store and dealing with customers. I think it's just a great way to do it. Yes?
I had a question relating to security.
Can you hear me? I don't know. Relating to security, it seems like your stores would be a target-rich environment for people violating some of the transactions that you do. Knowing that it's very difficult for even large government, highly funded companies to keep intruders out, how are you managing that while you're driving down all your costs?
So there's two elements of security. One is at the store, and obviously we take that very seriously. We do extensive training on come of age and ensuring that you're observant in the stores. We just, quite frankly, don't keep that much cash in the register. So if somebody wants to rob a 7-Eleven, you're not going to get that much money. Unfortunately, there are bad guys out there. We do have panic alarms in our stores, so our sales associates have the ability to press that button at any given time, which is a good thing. Security other than that, mostly from hackers, things of that nature. Yeah, I will tell you right now, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's a matter of when it's going to happen. You have to have a plan in place. You have to have a process in place where you can react quickly. I did have dinner with Michael Kingston, the CIO from Neiman Marcus, and they had a pretty big breach going on right after the Target incident. And it's the same thing. We shared some of the same thing. You can do as much as you want, but it's always going to be a challenge. Now, I would tell you that the government tells you that the EMV, which is European Master Visa card, which puts a PIN and a chip in every side of a credit card so that you have to key in your PIN number, I think that will help to keep the thieves, the bad guys, from replicating a magnetic strip card. You can still use it online, but boy, it's putting a lot of pressure on retailers. By the end of this year, 7-Eleven will install PIN pads that will be able to handle chip-enabled cards. All the cards in the United States, only 1% of the cards are chip-enabled today. In Canada, Europe, everybody has them. We're the last ones to do it. I think it's a good idea We've set ourselves up to do that, but it's going to be a challenge. Think about a restaurant. When you go to pay your bill at the end, you hand your credit card to somebody, they take it up, bring it back. Now at a restaurant, they're going to have a handheld unit. You put the card in, you can't take the card out until you key in the PIN number, and then you key in the tip and everything. So think of the infrastructure that retail's going to have to add to meet that. Now, is that the right thing to do? Absolutely. You have to protect your customers' data. And I think we've got a pretty solid program at 7-Eleven, but I'm still a little bit of a pessimist saying it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's when. And we have an IT security roadmap. We went to Joe DePinto this year when the recent breaches happened. We asked to accelerate it, and he approved it.
Oops, there we go. My question is regards to your strategic projects. How is it that you rank and prioritize, and how many do you have in the pipeline per year? Because I'm going to take you back as a benchmark to my leadership team. I think we have way too many strategic initiatives, and we've set ourselves up for failure.
So our executive team, we went off-site, we took our strategy map, and we tore it down to the studs, rebuilt it up, and said, here's what we're going to focus on. These 3 key areas for the upcoming year. They're called the big 3, and we said everything else gets put on the back burner. And that's how we focus. We got the executive committee, we got senior leadership to say, here's what we're going to do. Now, big 3 sounds easy. Well, the first one of those has 14 IT projects related to it. The second one has 2, and the third one has 3. So I think you're going to continue to have it, and I think there's 2 things. You'll get your senior leadership to align on those strategic projects. The second piece, though, is if you've got a project that's going to give you a high return on invested capital, you need to do it. And you just need to figure out. Now, in the queue, like I said, we're probably right now live and going anywhere from 30 to 35 projects. And that's a lot. One more.
Mr. Hargrove, I have another question for you. From what I used to do, I know that prioritization is the easiest thing a project manager will ever do because you always say yes to everybody that comes into your door. Now here's the issue. When you were talking about prioritization, you specifically mentioned saying no. I know personally when you say no to a $20 million project because people that you talk to have used that package, it doesn't work, that those people who are invested in a $20 million project aren't particularly happy. So my question for you, as having recently gone through a massive prioritization effort, how do you identify those people to prioritize? How do you groom them? And how, after saying no, do you make sure they're there tomorrow to again seek business value? Thank you.
It's a great question. We formed an IT steering committee that meets once a quarter. As part of this committee is our CEO, the CFO, the COO, the EIEIO, and all those other things. Everybody in the company, 7-Eleven company, reports up to one of those 3 people. So we aligned with them saying, we're doing too much. So we got their support, saying, we're going to say no to the business, and I need your support. And once you've got that, we name drop. Hey, look, I'd love to help you out, but Joe told me I need to focus on this. And then we explained why. What projects are taking a little bit bigger priority and how you manage it. It's not easy. We don't do the best job of saying no. I've got some of my team members here today that will tell you the same thing. Rita, thank you very much. But I think that overall it's a challenge because you want to be a good servant leader. You really want to drive and meet the business needs, but it's not easy. But you can't offer the quality, the value, and directionally helping to hit the strategic objectives if you're spread too thin. And some days you just have to say no. Listen, thank you guys so much for letting me share some ideas and thoughts with you. I really appreciate it.
Hey, God, I gotta hit it. But anyhow, I was thinking here, I've been a lot of places in the world, and I worked in Hargrove, and on airplane shows. I've seen the fast food places, 25 hours. You got how many items in the store?
2,200 SKUs in the store.
You gotta keep up with that. How many items in the store?
We have 53,000.
You need these glasses. I highly recommend you get something strong and put it there. Thank you very much. break time, you know where to go from 11 to 12, lunch is over there. There'll be guys out there that got to do the maze,